how do you protect AI? It's taken us as attorneys, it's taken the patent office some time to get to the point where we know how to protect something that has an AI component to it. The pendulum swings. It's constantly swinging. We went from not patentable to patentable business methods to the world saying this is crazy. And then the patent office was really getting criticized, and scientists realized we've gone too far, or the case law has gone too far.
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Business Ninjas. I'm here today with John Anastasi, founding partner at Lando Anastasi. John, how are you this morning?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm well, thank you. Appreciate you spending some time with us on Business Ninjas. Please tell us a bit about yourself and about Lando and Anastasi.
Sure. Let's see. I'm an IP attorney. IP is intellectual property, which is patents, trademarks, and copyrights. Previously an engineer, converted to IP law. So, was an engineer for a little while, decided that I wanted to have a seat at the table. So I transitioned away from engineering and went to law school at night, and became a attorney, agent in a law firm in Boston. The usual route, in the sense of going to law school. I went to law school at night while I was an engineer and during the day, then transitioned to a law firm, became an attorney. This is during the 90s, during the dot-com boom, and then during the 2000 dot-com bust. So, associate, worked my way up to partner in a law firm, IP boutique firm in Boston, watched sort of the law industry change over that time, watched a lot of things change. The firms raised their billing rates, raised their billing requirements, raised associate salaries. My salary went up overnight, like 40K. So a lot of things, a lot of money was flowing during that time. And I worked my way up to partner. All the money was flowing. I watched that firm sort of change its culture, like a lot of law firms did during that time. And then when the bust happened, the bubble burst. A lot of firms were left sort of holding the bag, in the sense of that firm has fired some of their stable clients. The culture had changed. At the time, it was 35 attorneys when I joined. In the early 2000s, when the bubble burst, it was 60. And I sort of said to myself, this isn't why I got into practicing law. I got into practicing law to marry technology and the law, so to be on the cutting edge of innovation, help people, help clients, and frankly, to have a seat at the table. And most of those things weren't happening. The metrics had changed. The focus had changed to, I don't know if you ever talked to partners at law firms, but one of the metrics they use is PPP, per partner profits. That's not what I got into practicing law for. I got into practicing law for the, sort of the excitement of it all. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning. And so in 2003, we formed our firm, Lando Anastasi, and LAlaw.com is the website, if you know a TV show. And when I tell people my email, janastasi@lalaw.com, I either get a blank look, like when I say like the TV show, I either get a blank stare, or I get somebody who says, "Oh, I love that show, and that's why I started practicing law." So I sort of know the generation I'm dealing with by when I going over our website. But that was the sort of, for me, the impetus to start the firm. We are a mid-sized boutique. We are approximately 35 attorneys. So the size of our firm is the size of the firm that I joined in the early 90s. But the whole idea of the firm is sort of partnering with our clients, partnering with ourselves, partnering with our clients, getting back to practicing law, providing a valued service at a reasonable price point, you know, taking the focus off of things like billable hours, billable rates, and putting the focus back on servicing the clients. And frankly, we were branded a lifestyle firm right away when we came out. And good or bad, we were in Cambridge at the time. We're in Boston now, but it sort of stuck. We became known as a sort of Cambridge IP lifestyle firm, and then being in Cambridge area of Boston, you know, with the life sciences, it's the mecca of life sciences. It's just sort of just starting at that time, and so we have now become sort of known as the sort of no longer Cambridge, but life sciences IP firm. So in Boston, we're sort of well known for that practice. But you know, I'm an electrical engineer. I have a master's in electrical engineering. So IP patent law has many different disciplines. We've become well known in the life sciences space, but you know, we also offer every technical discipline of patent law, or you know, we also offer trademarks and copyrights and litigation. So probably a long way of saying mid-sized firm in Boston, not the big guys. We don't charge like the big guys. We don't flood a litigation with attorneys like the big guys. We give you, you know, it's a team-oriented approach, trying to partner with our clients, not the small guys, not the guys in their house writing patents in their basement, although I am home, because the pandemic has sort of created this situation. But you know, we're in the middle. We provide the same services as the big firms to some degree. I would tell you better service, but we're not going to, you know, we're not going to handle large litigation or 200 patents a year or something like that, which the big firms might do. We're going to handle 20 patents a year for a client, and make sure they're done well, and that the price is reasonable.
Well, you're describing a scenario with the large firms. There's many of them, right? Perception is important. It's that big boardroom with expensive suits and the perception of prestige and wealth. But the reality is, client is paying for that perception, right? For that surface substance. So I've always thought that was unnecessary. So I appreciate your approach. I assume that in terms of partnering with clients to further their needs, they know you're an engineer. Your background has to provide comfort and guidance at a level that no other attorney can in this context.
Well, yes, to some degree, and I appreciate that. If you look at the patent field, now in IP law, you have patents, copyrights, trademarks, and you have litigation. If you look at the patent field, everyone has it. There's a patent bar. You have to,
Sure.
in order to practice, in order to sit for the patent bar, you have to have so many technical courses, which usually means a technical degree. So most patent attorneys are engineers by training, degree. And in the life sciences space, most in Boston anyway, the firms won't look at you if you don't have a PhD. So most life science patent attorneys are PhDs. Now, I would say the minority, 10, 20%, mostly my generation, may have been former engineers who transitioned to the law. Whereas now it's much more common to go engineering school to law school to an IP attorney with no, I'll say, practical experience.
Sure.
But the practical experience comes sort of from training on the job. We hire out of the engineering schools, and we hire and train. We hire agents, and they work during the day for us, and they go to law school at night, and we pay for their law school at night. So they're training an apprenticeship in the day, training, and then when they graduate law school, they've got 3-4 years of apprenticeship under their belt, and so their practical training comes with us.
Gotcha. In terms of your clients, is it exclusively in the life sciences space, or are there?
No, it's all over the map. Um, I mentioned life sciences because sort of we become well known in that space, and it's kind of a blessing and a curse. Um, I'm I myself probably see, because we sit in Boston, I myself probably see 7 or 8 out of 10 inquiries that are new clients are life sciences related. It's where we sit. It's the sort of how we're known, and I spend a lot of time sort of promoting that part of the firm, because we're always looking to hire people because there's so much work. It's a question of bandwidth. But I'm an electrical engineer. My clients are, as you know, everything these days has some kind of AI component. I do a lot of software, hardware. Uh, Almost everything these days has some sort of AI component to it. So control analysis with AI. Um, but as an electrical engineer, IP firm, patent firm, my clients are all over the map. One of my clients is Toomey, the luggage manufacturer. So consumer goods. Spend a lot of time doing design patent work for Toomey. Design patent work is more about how something looks versus how it works. So it's really just the nature of the clientele. I do work anything from consumer goods to software, AI, or hardware, chips. I used to design chips as an engineer. One of my clients, I worked for Raytheon as an engineer. So one of my clients, Raytheon, we do, or have done, I should say, a lot of work in the optical space. So optical systems. It just depends on the client. We have some pretty well-known clients in certain spaces. Schneider Electric is really APC. You may know them. They're everything power conversion. So if you think about a server room, or if you go into a Home Depot and you see a power strip, it's an APC power strip. So power conversion. It just depends on Skyworks as a client of ours. They're a chip manufacturer. So a lot of RF chips. So it just depends on the client.
With the proliferation of AI, have patents in the software space become harder, or is the process longer than it used to be?
AI has been around for a long time.
Oh, absolutely.
So where I sit, I've seen it for probably 10 years at least. But it takes the patent office a long time to figure out what to do with it. So we've been writing AI patent applications for 10 years. Now we write many more now, but how do you protect AI? It's taken us as attorneys, it's taken the patent office some time to get to the point where we know how to protect something that has an AI component to it. That could be how you train the AI engine, or the data that is going into the AI engine and what's coming out. How is that used? What's being done that's new and not obvious, which are the standards. So I would say in the beginning, 10 years ago, there was a sort of, what do we do with this? Now it's pretty routine. It's just, how does the invention get classified? What art unit do you wind up in? What's the cue for your application? And of course, everything is objective. I was the examiner in terms of examination. I would say your question is very relevant to AI. It's also very relevant to software. When I first got into this field in the early 90s, software was not patentable in the 80s. It was becoming patentable in the 90s. We went from it becoming patentable in the 90s to in the early 2000s, we were patenting business methods. The pendulum swings. It's constantly swinging. We went from not patentable to patentable business methods to the world saying, this is crazy. You had people spoofing the patent office like a method of swinging a golf club type of patents. And then the patent office was really getting criticized, and so I would just realize we've gone too far, or the case law has gone too far. So I started to pull back. And then there were a series of cases, and legislation, particularly during the Obama era, that pulled it all the way back to question again: is software even patentable anymore? And we had for a few year period of time, I don't think I saw one issued software patent. I had patents that were allowed that the patent office pulled back. And then now it's swung back to at least the middle. And it's a reasonable examination patenting process. So clients during this time, they have to figure out whether to file or not. We've always counseled everything's cyclical. You're better off filing, and there may be a delay to answer your question. But now I would say software is sort of a reasonable examination, reasonable time frame. AI's getting there, although it's still a question of not everybody knows what to do with it.
You said something that I was completely unaware of, that software was not patentable in the 80s.
Yeah.
There are a lot of innovative things coming out of Silicon Valley in the 80s, and they were not patentable. I was unaware of that. So you could patent hardware, but not software at the time?
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
Correct. Now it predated me because I started practicing in 92. So I don't even know the exact history, like I probably should. But when I got into the career in 92, that was sort of the buzz. Like software was patentable, and for a long time it had not been. And so software in the 90s is kind of like AI now. It was a question of what to do with it.
What are the most common problems you're solving for your clients, other than the simple path to filing with the patent office?
Yeah. So that's a great question for me, honestly, because, we're an IP firm. And so our bread and butter is patent prosecution, or getting trademarks, or copyright issues. And there's a lot of copyright questions these days with data for AI. Is that, can you use the data? Is it copyrightable? Those sorts of things. Those are the standard questions for clients, but I got into this field to have a seat at the table. And that for me means I want to help my clients in any way possible. So my goal when I talk to the clients is, what's on your desk? What is causing you to have trouble sleeping at night? So although, often it's bread and butter. Can we get this patentable? Is this patentable? Can we get this trademark? Or a lot of times clients come to me because they've had troubles elsewhere, and I get a lot of referrals from people who, are maybe thinking of switching because maybe we'll be more successful. But besides that, I like to help my clients in any way possible when I have a sort of network of resources. So generally it's IP stuff, but it doesn't stop there. I mean, we're not a corporate law firm. If you want to form a company, I'm not going to do that personally, but I will help you. I will connect you with a corporate attorney who can. So, I work with a lot of startups, and I try to help them however they need help. And it's not always just about IP. Fundraising. I have clients who, I have a client that licensed IP out of Stryker, and we did the initial license that launched the company. And since then, it's been many years now, probably 10 years, we've developed a great patent portfolio. Their challenge now is FDA approval of their bone glue, essentially, which is a regenerative bone glue. They need to get FDA approval. That's a long runway. They're seeking Series A funding round of $30 million. So they look at me and they go, "You have a fantastic network. Can you help us?" So I don't just do IP stuff, is my point. I try to help the clients. I'm helping them as much as I can to raise funding. but generally most of the time it's IP, but I will do my best to help you however you need to be helped.
Other than that holistic approach and your background in engineering, which really, really helps when you're sitting on the same side of the table with your clients, what differentiates Lando and Anastasi from your competitors?
I would say, when we formed in 2003, it was about, the mantra was, partner with our clients. And we saw, when we first formed, there was three of us, 4.5 employees really. And then within 2 months, we were 13 attorneys. So the model resonated with professionals in town. And then we had no idea what clients would come or not. Pleasantly, a lot of clients came with us. A lot of people came with us. And pretty soon what we realized was the model resonated with the clients. So, we're 21 plus years later, coming up on 22. And if I throw up on the board our top 20 clients, 13 or so of them are clients that came with us when we first formed. And 7 of them are life sciences clients that are new or have been with us for a few years, because we're in the mecca of life sciences. And what we typically see with life science clients is they form, it's almost an exponential ramp, and they go quickly from like a $50,000 client after a couple of years to a $500,000 client or $1 million client. They ramp up quickly, and then sometimes they're gone. So next year, when I throw out the client on the board, that client might not be there anymore because they were acquired, or if the drug failed, then they go away. So it's a very fast moving, high paced environment. So for the 13 clients who came with us when we were first formed, it's about the model. It's about, the partnership with the client, appreciating the value that we provide. For the 7 new clients every year, or 4 or 5 that are new, and 3 or 4 that are consistent life sciences clients, it's about the service, it's about the model, it's about what we can provide. It's about our people. Because in the end, you're working with an attorney. It's about providing the service at a reasonable price point, partnering with them. Because frankly, in the life sciences space, it's becoming more competitive now. It's very competitive, but I mean, it's more competitive in the sense, it used to be life sciences was sort of like .com. Money was just flowing because it's, you're on the cusp. Now that it's much more mature environment, clients are more value conscious. And so more than ever, we're sought out because, we're not billing $1,500 to $2,000 an hour like the large firms are. So, budgets are a factor now. And so how we differentiate is we provide the same, or really a better value, a better product, in my opinion, but it's also at a better value.
You broached the subject that I was going to ask a question. Are we at a place where the majority of patents that are acquired in the life sciences or health sciences space, once they do have FDA approval, they're gobbled up by larger institutions, they are acquired, or do these companies make a go of it on their own?
It's both. Not to sort of sound like an attorney, but I've seen clients that were startups, was a conflict check that our firm called NewCo, that are now large multi-billion-dollar entities. And I've seen clients that were a conflict check called NewCo at our firm that have been acquired by Biogen or whatever, right? So both happen. So it's just sort of the nature of what the industry is, I guess a good example would be, during the pandemic, the vaccine, and we have at least one client that was working in that space, right? And so that client took off, and but then you know, sort of the demand for that, and was acquired, but the demand for that vaccine is waning to some degree now. So, if you have Pfizer and you're relying on the vaccine, then not that Pfizer's only relying on the vaccine, but or if you, to illustrate the point, if you're a startup and your focus was on the vaccine, then you could have an issue now with the not a political statement, but it's just the demand for the vaccine is not where it was in 2022.
And aren't we glad for that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously you have 20 years of reputation and referrals and relationships that help grow your business. Tell me about the content side of thing. What role has content played in the growth of your business? How you been telling your story?
Yeah. So this is probably illustrative of how we're different than a large firm, for example, right? Mostly what we do is organic. I network a lot. I've been doing it for a long time. I have a pretty good network. I'm pretty well known. I get a lot of referrals, but that's just, boots on the ground networking. To some degree, that has resulted in Lando and Anastasi, LA Law, having a brand. So there's more brand recognition now than ever, but that was sort of old fashioned, just networking. We do have a marketing director at the firm. But we don't use a digital marketing platform or anything like that. So it's writing content and publishing it on the website, or writing content and getting it placed. We have a contact of mine who is PR, is who I know from my networking. She works with the firm, and anything we write, she places. So we have a great connection in Boston and nationally to be able to place content. And so we do get a lot of recognition. We do get a lot of content placement and some recognition from that. But we don't have a huge marketing budget, and we don't spend a lot of money on PR or marketing per se. And so we're not sophisticated enough to know how to use SEO and those metrics, or we hire a website. We're probably on a fourth generation of our website, if I have to guess. And we work with website companies who help us create the website. And sometimes, they're reasonable. It's okay, but it's a website. A website's only good as it's good for a while, and then it's only as good as how you update it. And in terms of the back end, we don't necessarily know what to do with the back end, the content, the data, how to improve that. So, long way of saying, it's mostly organic. We could certainly improve from things like SEO optimization and all that sort of stuff. We don't really know how to do it.
As they say, I know a guy, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know a guy, and speaking of AI, right? Another another example of AI, the use of AI.
Yep.
So,
all right. Look down the road a year from now. What are some things you'd like to be celebrating personally and professionally?
Personally, I'm 62. So 62, 5 kids, 3 in college right now, 2 more to go. I'm not retiring anytime soon. So meanwhile, my firm, for example, the leadership of the firm is all sort of my age. And so there's this transition going on now, right? One of my partners is one has retired, is full-time retirement. Another is essentially transitioning into retirement. There's a transition going on in the leadership of the firm. So, that puts me in this sort of odd position of still practice. I'm going to practice for a while. But we're sort of transitioning the firm. So, and for me, that presents a personal and professional sort of transition period. So a year from now, I'd love to have a little more clarity on that, honestly. Um, it, Not that it's going to change what I do for the next 6 to 8 years, but it is a little bit of an uncertain time for me and the firm in the sense of how do we, make that transition go well, and keep and stay true to the values of the firm. Otherwise, it's on a personal level, it's I want to make sure my kids are doing well and set up as put them in the best position to succeed, which means getting the 3 I have in college through college and getting the other 2 into college down the road. For the firm, as we transition, I want to make sure that it stays true to its values, but also, we have pockets. I mentioned life science. Life science is booming. We have more bandwidth that we have more work than bandwidth. So how do we make sure that we can handle that? Or because we're in Boston, we have other pockets that are just busy, honestly, as much as the life sciences work is booming, the other areas in Boston are not as booming. So I'm always trying to make sure that those areas are well, that the pipeline is full and that we're sort of, everybody's busy and happy and that we're sort of clicking on all cylinders. So that's always been a sort of focus of mine. So, but still, even a year down the road, it's a little more challenging as we sort of are in this a little bit of a uncertain transition period. So, I would just like to see more certainty, I guess.
Wouldn't we all?
Yeah. I guess that goes for the world in general at this point, right?
Yep. Well, you've mentioned your coup of a URL. Please tell people where they can find Lando Anastasi and what social media outlets you're using as well.
Yeah. So LA Law is the website, lalaw.com. Given us so many top level domain names now. If you're my generation, like the TV show, and if you don't know the TV show, then I know what generations you are. So don't confuse that with LA. We're in Boston. We only sit in Boston, but we are a national and an international firm. We practice both nationally and internationally, but that's where you can find us. You can find us on LinkedIn. Obviously, it's very professional network. So I and members of the firm have a presence on LinkedIn, and we post a lot on LinkedIn as well as on the website. And then, this better than I do, but like Facebook, for example, other social media outlets, this is an example of not really appreciating. We don't use them as much. We do have a Facebook page. It's my understanding that the Facebook page is valuable for sort of more for the SEO type stuff. I don't know what we do with it.
John Anastasi, thank you for spending some time with us on Business Ninjas today. Continued success to you and yours.
Yeah.
And I guess you have to have continued success if you're getting 5 kids through college, right? And all the best for a solid future at Lando and Anastasi.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me.
My pleasure.